The culture and country of India has always fascinated me. I came across a TED Talk video of a woman named Deepika Bhardwaj. The TED Talk captivated me. It was about how men in the Indian society are suffering due to the strict 498 Indian Penal Code. She addressed the Indian Dowry Act from the perspective of men and talked of the men who are victims and systematically abused by the law. Deepika is a software engineer turned journalist, anchor, and a documentary filmmaker. Written by BBC, The Woman Who Fights for Men's Rights, she has made a documentary called Martyrs of Marriage, bringing to light the issues of men's rights and the abuse of the Indian Penal Code 498A. I spoke with her to find out more about the Indian Penal Code and her latest documentary that is now available on Netflix and Vimeo.
It was 9:15 in the night when we were arrested.
I was sent to jail without even being asked a single question.
उसको अंदाज़ा भी नहीं था कि एक फैमिली इशू इतना बड़ा क्राइम बन जाएगा।
के नाम पे अत्याचार बंद करो।
These provisions of IPC not only being misused, but they are grossly misused.
This is a tool which is being used only to extort money to make a better deal from the marriage.
If the wife demands something from the husband's family, like give me the car, give me the house, why that is not called dowry?
498 के केस डाल के ना बेचारे को बर्बाद कर दिया। 498 केस पढ़ने से बेचारा टूट गया।
If this law is going to be like this, definitely tomorrow we can see many more Manoj going to die in this society.
If after many years we notice that the law is being grossly abused, whether it is 498A or whether it is even 376 or whatever, it is incumbent upon a responsive government to rise up to the challenge and to address the problem.
Hello, I'm speaking with Deepika, producer and director of the documentary Martyrs of Marriage. Let's jump right in. What is Section 498A of Indian Penal Code, and why was the law brought in the first place?
Section 498A is a law that criminalizes physical or mental cruelty caused to a married woman by her husband or his relatives. It basically criminalizes physical or mental harassment of the nature that can likely drive a woman to commit suicide or cause grave danger to her life, limb, or him. So it combines domestic violence and dowry demands to a married woman in India by her husband or his relatives. So all of them can be booked under this criminal section. It is a non-bailable, non-cognizable, and non-compoundable offense. Non-bailable means that the police, if the person is complained against or his family, cannot immediately get bail by the police. They will have to move the court to get a bail. It is cognizable in the sense the complaint has to be registered and investigated, and non-compoundable, which means the complaint once registered cannot be withdrawn by the woman. So these are considered one of the most stringent provisions under the criminal jurisprudence, and the law punishes any person who is found guilty of such kind of a behavior to 3 years of rigorous imprisonment. So that's what the law says.
How has the provision been abused?
So Tyra, there's a little background to this. In India, we have Domestic Violence Act, which was passed in 2005, to basically look at cases of domestic violence. But in 1983, when the law was brought, there were essentially not any specific provision addressing domestic violence. So the law was brought in place. Now, sometime in the late 80s, there were a couple of reports that started coming out that the law was being abused. Now, when you say the law is getting abused, what it essentially means is that the reason because of which the marriage has fallen apart is not dowry or domestic violence. There can be various reasons because of which a marriage has fallen apart. There could be anybody's fault, either the husband or wife, but not essentially in the terms that it's domestic violence or harassment, but disputes, a marital dispute, people to people falling apart because of any which reason. But when a complaint under 498A is made, very serious allegations of the nature which would come in the bracket of how the law is defined. Like I said, physical or mental harassment, causing grave injury to life, limb, and health, extreme dowry demands and harassment because of the same, extreme physical beating. So all of these allegations are made, and the complaint is registered. Now, these allegations, there have been several cases and there have been several judgments where the courts have also realized that these allegations were fabricated and these allegations were realities that did not happen in the relationship. So that's how the law is abused. And the law is abused also for getting maximum money out of the husband and his family. The kind of negotiations that are happening after 498A is, if I would call them, ridiculous. There is a huge amount of money that is getting exchanged in the name of this law alone. The kind of settlements that are happening after filing of 498A between husband and wife are going to the tunes of 50 lakhs, 1 crore, which would be 50 million, 100 million INR. So crazy kind of money is being demanded under these complaints. And like a marriage could fall apart because of any reason. There could be fault from any person's side. Whether it is incompatibility or whether it is somebody not liking, essentially in India, a wife moves into the husband's home, and we have a lot of nuclear families also. We have a lot of joint families also. So in case the woman doesn't want to stay with in-laws, and she has a problem over that, and the husband says, I would not leave my parents, it would get exaggerated. If somebody has extramarital relationship, either the husband or the wife, and the relationship falls apart because of that, a 498 complaint is made. So basically, the reason could be anything. The fight could be anything. There have been cases where the dispute over a very small amount of money, where dispute over a perfume, where dispute over a trip abroad, or dispute over anything that was not desired, not met on the honeymoon. Anything, the husband's, refusal to part ways from his family, or, keep giving money to his family, which is objected by the wife. These kind of issues have been exaggerated to extreme amount of domestic violence and dowry demands, which are filed then under 498A. And one very peculiar thing about 498A, if I may discuss, which I don't think it happens anywhere across the world except India, is for dispute between two people, for dispute between a husband and wife, or any kind of let's say, even if it is violence, even if it is behavior which is harassment or torture, but anything, whether that has happened or not happened between husband and wife, under 498A, the law gives right to a wife to implicate the entire family of husband. So there have been cases, Tyra, where 16 to 17 people have been named in the FIR, in the criminal complaint, and all of them have been branded as criminals. These are people sometimes who are sitting 1,000 miles away. These are people who are brothers and sisters who are settled abroad. These are uncles and aunts who are living in absolutely different cities but at a certain respectable position. These could be people who are brothers and sisters who are minors. There have been cases where even children have been named in the FIR. So the ambit is so wide and the law is so loosely defined that anybody and everybody becomes a relative. And the best way that people are finding out to basically pressurize the husband's family is to include as many names as possible in the FIR. And and the person then feels so responsible for bringing the entire family into the ambit of criminal trial. And then a lot of people try and find their way out by settling this. And like I said, the kind of demands that are being made under this law of, in terms of settlement or in terms of settling the case outside the court are humongous. So that's in a nutshell how the law is being abused. So it's a very long conversation.
What is the abuse of this provision doing to lives?
Tyra, I recently completed my documentary, which is called Martyrs of Marriage. It encapsulates the entire discussion on 498A misuse. Let me tell you that this whole discussion on misuse of 498A has been going on for 2 decades. Our parliamentarians have addressed this issue but discussed this issue time and again. There have been a lot of outcry in the public regarding misuse of this law. So my documentary basically documents the entire journey, if I may say, of this law's abuse in terms of why the law was brought into place, how the law has been abused, why the law gets abused, and what are the repercussions of it. Now, when I talk about the repercussions is when I discuss what it is doing to lives. It is taking lives. There are so many people who have committed suicide because of this harassment, because of false accusations, because of not finding a way out, and because of being men essentially themselves being victims of domestic violence, of domestic abuse. But when they have tried to raise a voice or tried to get out of that relationship with a way of divorce, they have been accused of, beating up the woman and asking dowry and all of this under 498A. So a person who is victim himself then becomes a perpetrator through these accusations. So there's so many people who have committed suicide because the demands were huge. They were threatened that their entire family would be implicated and dragged to the courts for years and years. And my documentary discusses 3 such cases of suicides by men who left evidences in forms of video and long suicide notes, asking the lawmakers to look at these provisions where mere statement, a verbal statement, an uninvestigated complaint, something that has no basis at all, has been used as a tool to harass an entire family. People get jailed. If I tell you the numbers, in the last 15 years, 2.7 million people have been arrested under 498A alone, out of which 6.5 lakh were women. And more than 7,000 minors have been arrested under the law. So the kind of extreme situation that is built up, and what happens, Tyra, in these cases in India is it is not just one law, 498A. When the marriage lands up into the courts, if I may say, then the accusations on the husband are under 498A, which is for cruelty. Then there's a Dowry Prohibition Act, which criminalizes dowry separately. Then there's a Domestic Violence Act, which criminalizes domestic violence separately. Then there are 3-4 cases of maintenance which can be filed, under which the woman can seek relief, monetary relief, or residence relief. So there's 406, which is criminal breach of trust. There's 125, which is for maintenance. So one person at the same time can be facing about 6 to 7 cases and be running around the courts from here to there to basically prove his innocence. Mm-hmm. And since we do not have any limited time period for these disputes to be resolved, a marital dispute, or if I may say, a case of 498A or all these other clauses that I mentioned, can go up to 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. There are people who have fought these cases for even 15 years. I remember when I was screening my documentary in Hyderabad, which is one of the metropolis in India, there was a woman, a sister, who was encouraging everybody to fight these false cases. And she said just 2 days before she had got her acquittal in a 498A case, and they had been fighting for 15 years. So 1.5 decades, you were fighting in the court for your innocence. And even after you are proven innocent, even if it is declared that the facts of the case were not exactly the way they were presented, or there were some false accusations, or there were lies that were stated in the complaint. The person basically gets just an acquittal, and we have very, very slow machinery to prosecute, or if I would say, actually no machinery to prosecute these cases where people file false complaints. Even though we do have laws that criminalize these false accusations, but they're rarely invoked, especially in these cases of crime against women. So even if it is found that the case was concocted and fabricated, there is very little action, or I would say no action, that's taken against the person who has filed a false complaint. So the entire situation is a lot of helplessness by the man who is accused in a situation like this, or even the woman in terms of a sister or a mother who is accused like this. So a lot of people have killed themselves, and my documentary basically discusses these cases. So the repercussion is, in fact, last year in Mumbai, there was a young lady who committed suicide and left a 2-page suicide note stating that they were not heard at all. It had been 2 years and they had been running around the police and the courts, and they were not heard their side of the story at all. They were falsely implicated, and it is becoming extremely difficult for her to live her life that way, with these false accusations, with her dignity compromised, and with such accusations. In Indian society, we value our reputation. We hold it very close to our heart. And your reputation lost is basically everything lost kind of a thing in India. And when you get accusations like that, you're put through a lot of societal shame as well. So all of these pressures basically lead a person to do something which is extremely painful. And there have been several suicides. But otherwise also, Tyra, even if it is not suicide, let me tell you, I get these emails and phone calls where people say that they're living corpse. So they are almost dead, and the day their mother was arrested, or their father was arrested, they were completely broken that day. And they're just living their life now, trying to prove their innocence. So it's quite an injustice through this law, I would say.
Mm-hmm. What can viewers do to help with the Martyr of Marriage documentary and the injustice that has been perpetrated from Section 498A of Indian Penal Code?
First thing that people can do to help Martyrs of Marriage is to support this whole idea that justice has to be gender neutral. It cannot be biased. Our laws in India are extremely biased, extremely one-sided, and any amount of discussion to bring some sort of neutrality into these laws is shunned down, is sort of suppressed and on various grounds, essentially by women's rights activists and feminists in India. They just don't want to accept that the law is perpetrating injustice. There is abuse which needs to be addressed. So first my request to people is to basically, support this idea that laws need to be gender neutral and justice needs to be gender neutral. Second thing is, I am not, right now I'm screening the documentary through public screenings and going and having a discussion across India on this issue. We have screened the documentary in Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata, Chandigarh, and also at the state judicial academies in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. So the response has been amazingly well. But personally, I have been abused on social media. I have been called names in social media by feminists and a lot of women rights activists, saying whatever you're doing is extremely biased, or call me names like a rape apologist or pimp, or extremely disgusting things like that. But I think anybody across the world who is trying to bring forth the issues that men are facing such abuse. It doesn't matter whether they are men or women. Even women, whosoever tries to bring this issue out, they are usually abused. And actually, this resistance, this protest by women's rights groups are one of the main reasons that the law hasn't been changed so far in India. So, as such, no protests, but yeah, there's a lot of mudslinging against the documentary and talking stupid stuff about the film, but did not feel helpless. The way I felt at one point of time, people should not feel that there's no way out, that most families feel when they get caught into this situation. So I wanted to spread a lot of awareness around this issue, and I've been able to successfully take the word out to a lot of people in India, and the journey continues. It's always, you can never, it's never an end. So I'm screening the film in more and more cities. I'm screening the film in institutes. I'm having a discussion with young students on the situation we have right now. So I hope it will lead to an impact someday, but this is certainly a journey right now for me.
Help and support is available right now if you need it. If you or someone you know is in need of help, you don't have to struggle with the difficulty of feeling alone. For help, please contact the number. For further information, visit martyrsofmarriage.com or visit the description box below. Thanks for watching.